Welcome back, Fantasy Football Endgame community. Thanks for joining us as always. This time we're going to talk about, well, Darrell Henderson, because Cam Akers is not going to be playing in 2021. You might have heard the news. It's kind of a sad day for me as an Akers stan. We're not going to see him this season because he tore his Achilles. So the big question for fantasy purposes is, what does that mean for Darrell Henderson? Is he going to jump in and replace the production that we think Akers could have been capable of? Or is he going to be a disappointment based on his role in this offense? Let's start with the first obvious question. Chris, do you think Henderson comes close to putting up the kind of numbers that we thought Akers would put up this year?
Close, yes, because I think I was a little bit lower on Akers than most. I had Akers as, a high-end RB2. I didn't think he was going to get the work that many people expected. Now, do I think Darrell Henderson will be as good as Akers? No, I definitely don't. I have Darrell Henderson more as like a mid to low RB2. But in fantasy, that's not a huge difference, right? We're not talking like 100 fantasy points. We're talking, maybe 30 fantasy points, 40, 50 fantasy point different. Nothing, 50 I guess is a lot, maybe like 30s. But no, I don't think it'll be a huge, I don't think he'll be what Akers would have been, but I don't think he'll be a significant drop off either.
Well, pretty much where I stand on this, because prior to this devastating injury, I had Akers as a first round pick. I thought he had top 5 running back potential. I know that was maybe a little out of hand, but still, I really thought he had that kind of ceiling, and now we'll just never know. We might not ever know what he could have been capable of. This isn't an ACL. This is an Achilles, which those who don't know, it keeps you out the same amount. It's a season lost, basically, but it's a lot harder to come back from. There's a lot of running backs who have had promising careers cut short because of an Achilles. So we might never know. But look, I had Akers as a first-round pick. Do I have Darrell Henderson as a first-round pick? Of course not. Do I have him as a second-round pick? Not at all. I have him closer to pretty much a late 4th, maybe early 5th-round pick. I know most fantasy football leagues are going to go running back heavy, and he'll probably go sooner than that. But realistically, I don't think he's worth a pick later. Probably 5th round would be the latest you should take him, but I'm not taking him before guys like David Montgomery, who is going to be the main back in Chicago. I think he goes after Chris Carson, who again is the guy in Seattle, where you talk about he belongs like maybe the Myles Gaskins of the world. And the difference there is, well, believe it or not, the pivotal factor here is Malcolm Brown. Look, if Malcolm Brown was still with the Rams, we would see probably a strict timeshare there between those two, because we know that the Rams trusted Malcolm Brown. Well, now he's not there, and he's in Miami. So we know he's going to take away some touches from Myles Gaskin, and that might be kind of the tipping point that leans, with Darrell Henderson having a little bit more fantasy value than Myles Gaskin. So I guess that puts him around, the RB, let's say, between RB 15 to 18 range. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, it sounds fair. I mean, look, it's hard to say what round to take him in because every league is different. And in some leagues, running backs are going to go earlier. Some leagues are going to go later. But I agree. I think he's after Edwards-Helaire, Chris Carson, and David Montgomery. But then I have him ahead of guys like Kareem Hunt, Myles Gaskin, Mike Davis, because I kind of view those guys as RB2s who have a somewhat limited workload. And I just like the situation for Henderson better than those guys because he's going to be in one of the best offenses in the entire NFL. And like you said, there is nobody there to vulture goal line touches from Darrell Henderson. So you got to think he's going to get the bulk of the work around the goal line. He should have plenty of opportunity to score a touchdown. So yeah, I agree. He's right there, right after David Montgomery, but before those other guys like Hunt, Gaskin, and Davis.
Right, so we know he definitely is fantasy relevant now, suddenly. Probably going to be a guy you want to have in your starting lineup. But here's the question. Do they go out and add somebody else? Because the way it stands right now, they have a bunch of undrafted free agents and 7th round picks behind him. If something happens to Henderson, they could be in a world of trouble. I don't care how many good receivers and Stafford at quarterback. You need some sort of running game. All right, so the question, first of all, is do you think they go out and add somebody despite the fact that they're saying, oh, we don't need to? They almost have to, right? They have to explode the free agent market. It's not much of a market these days. Who do you think they might be interested in? By the time that y'all are watching this, maybe they've already signed somebody. But if they do sign somebody, a veteran, Who might be helpful in that offense, and do they actually have any value, or do you think it's just going to kind of be a body behind Henderson?
Yeah, I do think they're going to sign somebody, but like you said, I mean, let's look at the available guys. A lot of talk about Duke Johnson. Okay, if they bring in Duke Johnson, he's at best a pass catching back. I mean, he wasn't even getting carries last year when David Johnson was healthy. He couldn't even beat out David Johnson, right? So, yeah, he's not going to have an impact. Adrian Peterson, like, what's he got left in the tank? Todd Gurley, he kind of makes a lot of sense because obviously he knows the offense. He knows Sean McVay, but they also know about his knees, and maybe they know his knees are really, really bad, so maybe they don't bring him in. There's just not a lot out there for them to bring in. Now, yeah, I do think they're going to bring in a veteran because you don't want to just roll in with Darrell Henderson and these other guys who are kind of unknowns. But to your point or to your question, no, I don't think whatever veteran they sign, Le'Veon Bell, I don't think it matters. These guys are done. Like we saw last year, Le'Veon Bell was with the Chiefs, and he's done. I'm sorry, he's done. He's fine. He'll give you like 8 to 10 touches a game, but I don't see any more from that from any of these vets. I think if anything, if you're looking for, a flyer, like I don't care who they sign. I have no interest in that guy. If I was going to take a flyer on somebody, it might be one of these, younger guys who are in the backfield and hope that one of them, breaks out in training camp. So yeah, I do think they're going to bring somebody in eventually, but no, I don't think they're going to have much of an impact at all.
Adrian Peterson is not aging. He's right the Tom Brady of running backs. I mean, he could still get some chunks of yards. I'm just saying in that offense, he could have his moments. Especially think about his last couple of years playing. He's been on Detroit and, no offense, Chris, but Washington, right? A couple of years ago, not these high-powered offenses. Adrian Peterson in a Rams uniform could be sort of interesting. But other than that, no, probably no interest. There's nobody out there. Look, Le'Veon Bell, we're finding out more and more as time goes on. He was a product mostly of that offensive system and offensive line. He's toast. I'll tell you, if there's a guy that they already have on the roster as of right now that I'm sort of interested in, and when I say interested, I don't mean actually drafting in redraft. I mean maybe a dynasty stash or maybe, keep on your watch list just in case. Raymond Calais, with the Rams now, he was with Tampa Bay, I believe, and they let him go, and then the Rams added him to the practice squad last year. He's a guy who's got some burst, some elusiveness. He's interesting, not a big guy, but he could rip off some long runs, give him the chance. So that's the guy I'm sort of keeping my eye on. But again, at this point, really, is Darrell Henderson and nobody else behind him as of now. So you think Henderson's role is safe? He's a solid RB2 probably in most fantasy leagues. What I do like about him is that he's pretty good at catching the ball out of the backfield. He does bring that floor at least. They have used him that way. If anything, he might have more value as a receiver than as a running back. So it wouldn't surprise me if they bring in a guy like AP for the early downs and then have Darrell Henderson to mix in kind of like they were doing with Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson before Akers came along. So the final question here, Chris, if you're a dynasty owner, what are you doing with Akers? The temptation is just to sell for whatever you can. Are you holding though because you don't want to sell low? What do you see, as far as the near future for him?
You're pretty much in a no-win situation. I mean, if I got any halfway decent for Cam Akers in dynasty, I would absolutely take it. There is no indication anywhere that he's going to bounce back from this and be even a very good or good running back. And I hate to say it, okay, because it's sad. We're talking about somebody's career. We're talking about a young, talented player. But it's true. It just is. This is a devastating injury. And every medical expert I follow on Twitter, they all say the same thing. He would be the one outlier out of, 15, 20 instances to beat this and become elite again. So chances are, sad as it is to say, he's probably never going to be fantasy relevant again. I hate to say it, but it's probably true. So don't take the risk. If I got any decent offer for him, I would take it. And I certainly would not be going out and trying to buy low on Cam Akers. Like, no way, no how, staying away. Because again, you're just going against incredible odds. This is a devastating injury. It's terrible. It's sad. It is what it is. And you just have to accept it if you have Akers. And if somebody gives you something like a first round pick or a decent player, I would just take it.
We were talking about this earlier on our live stream doing the mock draft with our in-game community members. And talking about some of the comps of players who've had this injury, running backs really young, looked like they had promising careers, and it just never happened again for them. Talk about Deontay Foreman, who with the Texans, he was just in the process of having his best game, a monster game, a breakout, if you will. And I believe it was very end of that game where he tore his Achilles, and obviously never the same again. He's still technically in the league, but we don't even know that because he just hasn't been the same type of player. Mikel Leshoure of the Lions, Chris, you were talking to me about that earlier. Somebody who we thought, oh, well, young athletic running back, he's somebody who could progress and somebody who might beat the odds. It's not likely to happen. You can't count on that happening. So Akers, sad to say, but again, probably we've already seen the best that we have from him, just after 1 year. All right, so catch the end game for breaking news all offseason and during the season long. We'll talk about what impacts you in the fantasy world, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already.